This
Hi.
conference will now be recorded.
Good morning and good evening, everyone. Please confirm if I am audible.
Yes, you are.
Okay. So thank you everyone for joining our day one session with regards to API testing using Postman tool. I hope most of you might have attended my first demo session, which happened last week. And thank you for your understanding for opting for this morning batch, which is 7:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. Indian Standard Timing. So without further delay, I think we can get started with the course. Uh, so for those people who are joining for the first time, a quick introduction about myself. My name is Kiran and I'm the trainer for this program, which is API automation testing using Postman tool. I come with close to 19 years experience in the IT industry. I've done a lot of training programs, close to 1,000 plus training programs, doing programs mostly for the corporates and also public batches whenever I get time. I'm pretty much interested in contributing back my knowledge to the folks needed in the IT industry so that they can excel in their career growth. Let me also start sharing my screen so that you can see this. And I request you guys to ask any question at any point of time, the moment you have it, because there are multiple participants. You might have different questions running in your mind. Feel free to ask the questions. Do not hesitate at all. And one of you, please confirm if my screen share is visible. I'm opening my Paint application.
Yes, screen is
Yeah,
visible.
it is visible, right? Okay, great. Okay, so since we are talking about APIs, application programming interfaces, let's start with our chapter one. Chapter one focuses on the API basics, introduction to APIs, understanding what is this API, understanding the data description formats, and the client and server architecture model. This will take at least two classes minimum. So let's start with the basics, right? So we need to know what exactly is an API and what does it stand for, what is the definition of it. I'm writing it on my screen. API stands for Application Programming Interface. That is a full form for API. But what is the definition of an API? Like, how would I define it and how would I understand the definition so that we can write the definition on our own? Let me write the definition and then I'll try to explain in the form of a diagram what is an API. Coming to the definition, an API is an interface or component developed to enable data communication across multiple modules in an enterprise application. So this is the definition of an API. So why do the developers develop an API? Simple. Their objective is to enable data communication. Enable data communication means let the data flow, let the information flow. But where should the information flow? It should flow across multiple modules. So this information will flow from module 1 to module 2, or module 2 to module 5, or module 5 to module 3. And where are all these modules present? In an enterprise application, meaning in a software package it is present. So that's the simplest way to define an API. Let us say that this definition is little difficult for understanding for the beginners. Let's talk from a general perspective, like a friendly definition. I can also say that an API acts like technical brokerage system, or I can say it's a messaging system, or I can call it as a messaging application. This is another simpler way to talk about an API. What does this API does is it will try to do the brokerage. Brokerage means it is trying to act as a courier boy between any two modules. So module one says, I'm feeling hungry, and module three says, okay, I'm giving you breakfast. How does module 1 communicate to module 3, and how does module 3 communicate back to module 1 in terms of I'm feeling hungry and I'm supplying breakfast? There is a middleman in between. That middleman is nothing but your API, right? So this is early morning here in India now. So I'm feeling hungry. Let's say after the training is completed, I feel hungry and I don't have patience to cook food. So what do I do? I would probably order online so that I get my breakfast. So I'm ordering because I'm feeling hungry, right? So I will say actor one is involved here. Actor one is Kiran. And what is he doing? He's feeling hungry after some time. What will he do? He will order a food, I mean a breakfast item. And this breakfast order, whatever I do using a smartphone app, this will go to a restaurant, right? Which I call it as actor two. And this guy prepares food, or he prepares the breakfast item, right? So this is the second actor involved. But am I going to the restaurant? No. But is a restaurant guy coming to my home? No. So there is some other actor also involved. Actor three is the courier person. I mean, if I talk about the app names, Swiggy app, Zomato, so these delivery boys will be there. These are the people who will collect my food and they will deliver the food, right? They will receive my order, they will collect the food and deliver the food. So this is the actor three involved. So in just a simple example that I do in my life and you do in your life, three actors are involved. In the same way, in API also three actors are involved. So let me write here. There are three actors or roles involved, namely let me write here, namely consumer, producer, API. So whenever we talk about APIs, these three roles come into picture. Consumer is the guy who is consuming the information. Producer is the guy who is producing the information. API is the guy who is passing that data from consumer to producer or producer to consumer. If I take my example, Kiran, actor one, he's feeling hungry. So do you guys think Kiran will become a consumer or a producer or an API? Who is actor one here, according to you? Consumer, producer, or API?
Consumer.
Consumer, of course, you are right. So Kiran is the consumer. Actor one is the consumer. And how about the restaurant guy?
Producer.
He is the producer because he is producing food for every person in that city. Kiran is one of the consumers. Actor three, who delivers the food, obviously, is the last option, which is API. Right? So if you have understood this application, I mean this definition, I can simply say another definition of an API is an API interacts between a producer, one second, between a producer application and consumer application. This is another way how people define also, right? So if you listen to 20 people, 20 people will give you 20 definitions. Like I am giving you three definitions right now. The first definition, let's try to recollect. An API always plays a role in terms of exchanging the data or transferring the data or enabling the data transfer from one module to another module in an enterprise application. All it does is it will take the data from one module, it will go and give it to another module. That is the meaning of first definition. Second definition is an API always interacts between a producer application and a consumer application. So producer application is that application that is producing the data. Consumer application is that application it is consuming the data. So 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 I'm the trainer, so I'm giving you training, right? So am I a producer or am I a consumer?
Producer.
Producer. And those people who are listening to this session, do you think they will be consumers or APIs?
Consumer.
Consumer. Then who is the API here?
Go to meetings.
GoToMeeting or Isha Training Solutions, which is coordinating the activity between me and you guys, they become the APIs, right? So you see, in our daily life also, we are able to correlate who is a producer, who is a consumer, who is the API. So if you understand these simple daily examples, I think API is becoming little easier for us to understand from a definition perspective. And we are all currently living in an e-commerce era where we become so lazy that everything becomes online, right? Even ordering food has become online, booking a movie ticket has become online, buying a gift for your wife or for your husband or for your boyfriend, girlfriend, for your parents, everything has become online. The moment everything becomes online, there is a courier boy coming into picture, and that courier boy itself is the API. If you are buying something, you are the producer, and if you are giving it to one of your relative, that relative member is becoming the consumer. So again, you see, in daily life also, because of e-commerce, I have this consumer concept, producer concept, API concept, and three actors are obviously involved there. If you have understood these examples, this is all about API and nothing more beyond it. So even if you go to google.com, search for what is an API, you get some similar definitions. If you break down the definition, this is the ultimate meaning of an API. Okay. Now, by the way, which applications in the world are using APIs? Like, I mean, are APIs mandatory? Is it being used only by one or two projects in the world? Or is it a new technology? What is so great about API, right? So examples of applications that uses APIs. If I start writing, I will take minimum 20 days to complete the writing. Every day, 1 hour, if I sit with you, I can sit for 20 days and write examples of applications that are using APIs. 20 days means 20 into 1 hour, 20 hours. And I have tried very fast, which means almost every application in the world is using APIs. If you open your smartphone, unlock your smartphone, look at the apps that you have installed. Right now, I'm having my smartphone in my hand. I'll talk about the apps that I am currently have installed. I have the Ola app, which is used for booking a taxi. Ola app uses APIs. I have the Uber app, which is used for booking cabs. It also uses APIs. How does they use APIs? Simple. I'm sitting at the convenience of my home and I have to go, let's say, 25 kilometers away from my home, probably where my office is located. I have to book a cab. And the cab guy exactly comes to the location where I'm staying. How? You will say that because you have turned on your location, the cab driver comes to your location. Correct. That's a general English statement. Let's talk technically. The location, when you turn it on your smartphone, the location has a GPS API present on your iPhone operating system or Android operating system. So location, turning location on is invoking an API call internally in your SDK of operating system, meaning software development kit of your operating system. So because of that feature only, Ola or Uber Taxi or any other similar apps that you use, they use APIs. I just spoke about location APIs. Another one, let's say I talk about another app which I have, let's say Book My Show. This is an application that we use to book your movie tickets, event tickets, concert tickets, etc. So maybe there is a new movie released and I wanted to watch with my family. Obviously, I'm lazy because I don't go to the multiplex theater, stand in the line and then buy a ticket. I'll say, hey, let's book it online and then we'll go on time. So my laziness helped with e-commerce application. So I book the tickets, I book my seating, I book my meal, I probably book even which screen I should go, which time I should go, which movie I should go. Everything has become online, right? Again, How does the theater owner interact with Kiran through Book My Show app and still get my seat reserved for a particular screen, for a particular timing, for a particular meal, or for a particular coupon that I have, for a particular area, etc., etc. All these things are also having a lot of API calls. Like one example I will give you. Let's say I'm watching a movie called, let's say the movie name is, let's say the Shah Rukh Khan's latest movie, Jawan movie. Okay. And I wanted to watch it in a movie theater called PVR Cinemas. Okay. And I wanted to watch it in screen one. And I wanted to go for 8 p.m. IST movie. Okay. And Kiran is using Book My Show app to book the movie ticket, and Book My Show app is interacting with PVR Cinemas software. Meaning with their database, it is interacting and trying to help me understand how many tickets are available, how many seats are available, what is the rate card, what is the movie playing in screen one, and what time it plays. So there is a communication happening between Book My Show application and the PVR Cinemas database. So PVR Cinemas database is telling me that only 5 seats are available today at 8 p.m. IST. So this PVR Cinemas theater, PVR Cinemas database is the producer, because they are producing data, which seats are available, how many seats are available, what is the rate card, what movie is playing in what screen. Book My Show app says, okay, according to the information I received from PVR Cinemas database, Kiran, these are the seats available, this is the rate card. So Book My Show is the consumer, and Kiran is actor 3, who is the another consumer here, right? So actually this I will call it as API. Kiran is the guy who is consuming the data using the GUI of Book My Show application, right? Using the GUI of Book My Show application, right? So this example, if you are clear with, I can say that Book My Show is also using APIs. Like that, all the applications on your smartphone, they use APIs. WhatsApp also uses APIs. Facebook uses, Instagram uses, Twitter uses, LinkedIn uses. All the Gmail application, all the social media applications, they use APIs. And if I have to give you one live example, uh, I wanted to know how is the current climate in my city. So I will say climate of Hyderabad. So you see here when
Sorry to
I
interrupt here, Kiran. I'm not able to see your screen. Is it only me or everybody?
okay, let me pause. Can someone please confirm if my screen share is visible
Yeah,
and
we are
I'm
able
audible
to.
also?
Now I can see.
Yeah, we are able.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Is there any lag that you guys are observing, or everything seems to be okay?
All good.
Okay, cool, cool. I'm anyways
Um,
connected to my Geo fiber, so okay. So let me also take a pause here. Anyone has a question until this point? Okay, cool. So what I did is I just, you know, I will say, yeah. So I just tried in google.com weather of some X city. I typed Hyderabad. Usually when you search in Google, what happens, you will get search results like this, right? You get weather of Bangalore, Chennai, whatever city you are from. If you type it, you get some data like this. But if you try weather of Hyderabad, and sometimes even if you type India versus Pakistan cricket score, or India versus Australia cricket score, you get some data directly. Google says that, hey Kiran, you don't have to search through these links, open this link in a new tab, and then read the climatical conditions. Google says that I am giving you the direct information on your face. It gives me a GUI based, output for me. So it tells me, symbolically and diagrammatically how it looks like there are chances that it might rain today here in Hyderabad, etc., some information. This example also uses APIs. If google.com is not using APIs for this particular query which I did, the result would have been like this. Like you will get links and you have to open one of the search results. Directly I'm getting the output. So Kiran is the consumer because he typed with this word weather of Hyderabad, and Google is the API which gave me this information that at Monday 7 a.m. the weather is like haze condition, etc. So I have told you who is the API, which is google.com. I told you who is the consumer, which is Kiran, because I am consuming the data, but who is the producer? Producer is that application which is giving this data from the backend. That data is coming from here. If you see weather.com, just below this diagram, you see the credits is weather.com. If you open weather.com in a new tab, google.com has partnered with weather.com. So weather.com is an IBM enterprise application. Google partnered with IBM to give these statistics, and that to live statistics, not recorded. So weather.com, you see on the top it says an IBM business, and here it has the data captured for the state and for the city. That information Google customized for Kiran, and it gave me in a language that Kiran can understand or a user can understand. So this is a live example of API that Google is using. Similarly, I mean, I don't know if there is any cricket match happening right now. So if I just type cricket live something, yeah. So if you see some kind of widgets like this, right now looks like this match is completed. India won by 99 runs. Let's say this match is happening now, then you will see the live data here. You don't have to refresh your browser. Again, who is the API provider? Who is the producer? You have to see here, like which website Google partnered with. Depending on that guy becomes a partner. Let's say this is coming from crickinfo.com. Then crickinfo is the producer. Google.com is the what do you call API, and right. I think mostly it is coming from this page, ClickBuzz, I guess, or ClickInfo. Okay, so these are few live examples that I can talk about if I have to say who uses API. So this examples continues. There is no end to the number of examples that we talk about. So overall, I can say that nearly 90% of the applications on the internet, when I say internet, it can be web applications or mobile apps, they uses APIs technology. 90% of the applications in the world, they use APIs, and hence APIs are pretty much important because that is the technology every application is using. Let's say you're working for a company called Infosys. I can say that in Infosys, 95% of the projects or maybe 80% of the projects are using APIs, which means all those 80% of the project team members should know how to develop an API, how to test an API, how to deploy an API, how to troubleshoot APIs, how to design APIs. Because when percentage of people in the world are switching to APIs, there is a necessity, there is a need for the IT people to understand APIs. If you are a developer, you should understand how to develop. If you are a tester, you have to understand how to test APIs. Because it is not only 5% of the applications using APIs, 90% of the applications on the internet today, they are using APIs technology. And I am not saying that 90% is the figure. It is the industry which is telling the figure 90% of the applications are using these technologies. In fact, Google contributed towards the development of APIs. Facebook contributed towards the development of APIs. When Google and Facebook together are contributing towards the development of APIs, we have to definitely understand that APIs are here to stay for the next 10 years or 15 years. And if you talk about the age of APIs, like how long it has been since the APIs have come here, the answer is, to my knowledge, I will say APIs are here since 2000 years. This is according to my personal knowledge, I'm telling you. If my answer is 95% correct, which means it's been 23 years people are using APIs in their projects. Today it is 90% of the applications using APIs. But yeah, obviously in the previous years it might not be 90%. It was like 5%, 10, 15. Slowly today it is 90% of the applications are using APIs. Okay. Okay. So now I wanted to give you an example of this first definition, where I said API is an interface or a component developed to enable data communication. Right. So I wanted to give you an example of that. Let me draw a simple e-commerce. Let's say this is an e-commerce application, and let's say there are 4 modules. This is module 1, this is module 2, let's say this is module 3, and this is module 4. And let's say this is my login module, this is the logout module, this is, let's say, add items to shopping cart module, this is like make payment. And just think that it is your https://amazon.in application. Now let us have some simple questions where I expect answers from you guys. There are 4 modules here, right? You need to tell me whether these 4 modules are dependent on each other or they are independent of each other. So according to you, are these modules independent or dependent on each other?
Dependent.
Dependent, okay. So tell me which 2 modules are dependent according to you.
Add items and
So to add item to the cart, payment.
Make a payment. So you mean to say that these modules are dependent on each other?
Login and logout.
Okay. Login
Login and
logout are
logout.
also.
So once you log in, once you log in, then only we can log out.
Okay, correct. So this is also dependent on each other. So let me draw the diagram. Any other dependency that you see apart from this?
Once we log in, then only we can like proceed for the payment. So even if we can add to the cart, but to proceed with payment, it will ask us to log in. Then only it will.
Perfect. So you mean to say these modules are also dependent. I think that's a fantastic answer, guys. This is the exact dependency diagram. Let's try to understand what is this dependency diagram. So I will first start with green color dependency, okay, where login and logout are there. It's a pretty normal understanding that if you don't log in, you cannot log out, right? That's a known thing to you also. Let us say Kiran logged in into Amazon application and he is browsing for something that he wanted to buy, and he got a phone call. Now he is talking on the phone for 5 minutes and then the phone is disconnected now. Kiran comes back to amazon.in and he thinks that it is time to go to office. When he clicks on logout on the web application or on the smartphone app, what will happen? When you click on logout, what will happen? I mean, general question. What will happen when you click on it?
User logs out.
We will log out of that application. Sometimes we'll get
User
session
will
time
be,
out. For Amazon, we going to get.
yeah. So user will be logged out from the application. So when you log out, when you click on logout, the user will log out. But what happens before you log out? That is what I wanted to talk. The moment Kiran clicks on logout button, immediately Look at this green color arrow mark. Okay, this arrow mark, upward arrow. Logout will send a message to the login module. Now I should not call it as a message, rather I should call it as a function call. So there will be a function call sent out, okay, by the logout module to the login module. In that function call, what happens is logout will ask login module one question. That question we call it as a request. Let me write it here. So it will send a request saying, looks like the current user wanted to log out. Can you please tell me if the current user actually logged in or his session timed out already because of inactivity observed for 2 minutes or 5 minutes? This is the question, this is the request logout will send to login module. I repeat, logout will send a function call to login module. A function call is nothing but a kind of request to the login module, and the request will look like this. Mr. Login module, I need some help from you. The current user clicked on logout. So you tell me whether this user is already logged out or he is currently logged in. If he is currently logged in, is his server session still valid or invalid? This is the message. This is the request that goes from logout to login through a function call. Login will say, okay, brother, thank you for sending this request. Let me check in my database. So this guy will check in its own database. Every module will have a micro database. Okay. So it will check in its database and it will give back an answer. That answer, I will call it as a response. So look at this downward arrow where I'm drawing it. Now this guy will send a response. Again, it will also use the function call that was created by the logout module. In this response, the login module will tell logout that, hey, Kiran is still logged in. That's it. Or if Kiran session has timed out, it would tell Kiran session has timed out, meaning he is already logged out on the server side. Based on the answer that login provides to logout, then only Kiran will be logged out. Like I asked you a question, what happens when you click on logout? You told me that you will be logged out. But before I'm logged out, this green diagram will happen. This green line communications will happen. Now, how can logout talk to login? You will say there are function calls that we use. That's how a function call is enabling data transfer from logout to login, and the same function call is helping data communication from login to logout. These function calls today are replaced by APIs technology. Okay. Before it is called as a function call. Today we call it as an APIs technology. When I say before, in the sense not yesterday or day before, maybe in the year 2000, 2001, 2002, function calls are the terminologies we use. They are replaced by a better technology called API technology. So logout module is communicating with login module. Login module is communicating with logout module. Why are they communicating? To send a request, to receive a response. How are they communicating? Through a function call. That is in the year 2000. Today, how login and logout are communicating? Using API technology, which is similar to function call. Right? Now, if you look at this definition, tell me, is the definition simpler now? Because there is a diagrammatical explanation given now. An API is a component developed to enable data communication. So you tell me, is login and logout exchanging data or not? Are they doing data communication or not in the form of a request and a response? Yes. And the definition continues across multiple modules. So two modules are involved, which is nothing but multiple modules, login and logout. In an enterprise application, of course, login and logout are part of this brown box, which is Amazon application. So now you guys tell me, is this definition difficult to understand? Is the definition clear now to you guys? I'm waiting for an answer. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, it's good.
Yeah, Kiran.
Yeah. So in any mobile app or any web application, this communication happens. So now you look at the pink lines or you look at the orange lines, the same example happens. When you click on make a payment, what happens? You will say that, yeah, the money will be debited from my account. But before it debits, make a payment will first check with the login module and says, looks like Kiran wanted to make a payment. Is he logged in first of all? Because login is mandatory before you buy a product in Amazon. The login module will say, yeah, looks like Kiran is logged in. So the request goes in the first orange line saying, hey, is Kiran logged in? And then a response comes that yes, Kiran is logged in. So make a payment says, okay, one API call is completed. Now I can think about checking with add items to shopping cart. Then the pink line comes. Then make a payment will send a request to shopping cart module and says, Kiran is a logged in user. He wanted to make a payment, but did he have at least one item in the shopping cart or in the basket? Add items to shopping cart says, okay, let me check with my internal database and get back to you. And then it gives me a response saying that, yeah, looks like Kiran has two items in the shopping cart. Then make a payment says, okay, second API call is also completed. The prerequisites are ready. Now let me start asking Kiran to provide his credit card number or debit card number and then deduct the payment and let the order be created. So you see, make a payment is talking to two other modules in the enterprise application. So this example, if you understood diagrammatically, this is the definition of API. So when I'm teaching you this, obviously your mind is saying that, hey, looks like I know all these things. Definitely you know most of these things, just that you have to relate it to a new technology called API technology. Because I'm not teaching you something that is out of the world. This is a common sense example. The only thing that I'm introducing is there is a request and a response which is facilitated by a technology called as API technology. Now comes the next question. Okay, make a payment is communicating with login module in the form of a request. Login module is giving back a response to make a payment in the form of response. But how are they communicating? Like what technology they use to communicate? Answer is APS technology. But what language do they use to communicate? Like I told, I'm the producer because I'm speaking a lot. You guys are consumers because you're writing down notes, you are listening, you are asking me questions. And Isha Training Solutions or GoToMeet application is the API. All good. When I say Kiran is the producer, Kiran is producing content. In which language am I producing content? English. Right now I'm speaking to you in English. So I'm producing the content for you guys in English. Probably because we understand automatically that English is the default language we use when we share knowledge with someone else, especially in the professional elite world. And when you have a question, you will also shoot a question or you will give back a response that, yes, Kiran, I understood this. No, Kiran, I did not understand. Can you explain again? Again, your communication style is also is in English. So between a producer and a consumer, language is very important. So the language here I'm using is English. That is between you and me. However, if I talk about this brown box Amazon application, where four modules are involved, how does the producer produce the content? Meaning, in which language the request is going, in which language the response is coming. That is important for us also. Again, API is not a language. API is just a enabler. It's a technology that we are using, right? Example again, you say one of you said that GoToMeeting is the API here. Just because you have the API doesn't mean the training will be successful. What if I start speaking to you in Spanish? I mean, I don't know Spanish, but let's say I start speaking in Spanish. You will say that, Kiran, everything is a bouncer. We don't understand anything. So, though I have an API, producer is failing, consumers are failing because the language is not compatible between producer and consumer. So, therefore, to ensure that this training session becomes a success, we agreed upon English as data communication language between producer and consumer because we wanted this to be a hit, we wanted this to be successful. Similarly, when developers develop APIs, they enable data transfer between module 1 and module 2, module 2 and module 1. They should also agree upon a data communication language that's understandable by all the modules, like English in my case. So here the languages that are available for APIs to send the data from one module to another module will be, I'm writing in the order of how they created in the industry. First, the industry created uh, text. First, it was text format. Later, text format is changed to HTML format. Later, HTML is changed to XML format. And finally, they stopped at JSON format. Text and HTML are outdated. So I'll put it in red color. Initially, meaning in the probably in the year 2000, 2001, APIs are sending the request and response using plain text format. Like the way I'm writing on my notepad or paint, it's a plain text. Anyone can see the text. There is no security associated with the text because even if I send my username and password, anyone can easily read it. So plain text format is a very outdated technology, but initially the industry used it because we never had a better option. Later, the industry switched from text format to HTML format, hypertext markup language, which is used to design the web applications. The GUI of the applications can be done with HTML. So HTML is used to send the data from login to logout, logout to login, etc. But later, industry thought HTML is also having a lot of issues for transferring the data. They wanted a better option. That better option came in the form of XML. So XML stands for Extensive Markup Language. XML is also not very preferred today. XML is 90% outdated technology. I'm speaking purely from API's perspective. 10% today people are still using XML as the mode of communication from one module to another module, but 90% of the projects, 90% of the developers, they don't use XML today. Okay, but 10% of the developers still uses it. Like in my company, in my consulting engagements, I still see a few projects still using XML because of certain dependencies. They don't have other options. So XML is used to transfer data between any two modules. Now, since XML also got deprecated, XML was in use until 2010, 2011. From 2011 onwards, the industry had a better successor, a better technology than XML called JSON. JSON is coming from JavaScript family. It stands for JavaScript Object Notation. Today, or I would say from the last 10 years, JSON is the preferred data communication language between any two modules. Like if you say English is a universal language, I will say JSON is a universal data communication format between any two modules that uses API's technology. So 100% of the developers by default, they switch to JSON only. They use JSON only. There is no other alternative that they will think of. Why is that so? We will talk about that later. But there is also another technology that few companies are also using. Apart from JSON, they use YAML. YAML, YAML. Okay. So YAML, simply say it is the father of JSON. It is like a superset for JSON. YAML stands for YAML is not a markup language. JSON has a certain syntactical rules. YAML does not have those rules. That is the simpler differences. Few companies are also using YAML, but if I have to compare between JSON and YAML, JSON scores much bigger than YAML. Okay. So I'm not saying that JSON will be outdated and YAML will take the place. At least in the next 5 years, it is not going to happen. In fact, 5 years before when I'm training, I said the same statement that YAML might replace JSON in the next 5 years, and that 5 years is completed. Again, I'm saying the same statement that it might take another 5 years for YAML to replace JSON. I mean, why am I saying that? That is because JSON has become so powerful that YAML can't replace it fully. It's been 5 years since I'm telling this in my trainings. Until now, YAML did not replace, which proves a point that JSON is very powerful, very simple, and very helpful for the developers and testers in the API's technology. So you can blindly believe me that JSON is going to stay here at least for the next 5 to 10 years. Okay. So what is this text to HTML, XML, JSON, YAML? This is like the languages human beings speak. Like I speak Telugu, Hindi, English, and you might speak some other languages. Similarly, APIs uses these languages. But text is it has become outdated. No developer will use this. HTML is also outdated. No developer will use this. So your developer might use something between XML to JSON or YAML. In this, if you want a sure shot answer, 99% of the times they go for JSON only. It is not a personal choice, it is an industry choice. Industry told every developer that switch to JSON, use JSON as the mode of communication for ensuring a safe, secured, robust, efficient enterprise application that uses APIs. Developer cannot say that, hey, I will still use XML. I like XML, I know XML. The project manager will say no. Client himself will say no, we don't recommend XML, we want you to use JSON. Because the entire industry is using JSON, we will also use JSON to protect our application. Okay, so these are the data communication languages. Any questions until this point?
Hey, Karen, my
Anyone?
question. Yeah. Since you said text, HTML, these are outdated. So are we going to treat those or we're going to leave them since they are now outdated? Did you get
Okay.
my question?
Yeah, I get your question. Let me try to answer that in a better way. Okay, so let me take a piece of notepad. So when I say text, I mean plain text. We say HTML, then we say XML. Let's talk a little bit about them. So plain text is also referred to as clear text. Now what happens is whenever the user sends some data, between one module to another module, let's use the word client and server architecture or two modules. Let's say Kiran is logging in to an application. So login functionality is what Kiran is using. As part of this, what does he do? He will supply his username, he will supply his password and clicks on login button, right? Which means you go to any application and you will try to do that. So let me open a small demo application. So something like this. So here I supply the username Kiran and the password Kiran. When I click on login, what will happen? Okay. When I click on login, the login button has a code present inside it. And assume that the developer uses an API technology to transfer these credentials to the backend system or to the server. If the developer has used text format as a mode of communication, what happens? My username and my password will be sent from browser. This browser is called as the front end application or the GUI application. I will talk about front end in a later class in a much more depth, but for now, please understand that. So my username and my password will be sent from browser to database, right? And let's call the database as a backend system. Okay. While the data is transferring from front end to back end, right? There is a data transfer happening, which is my username and password. Let us say it takes 20 seconds. Okay, 20 seconds is very high, but for the example purpose, it is taking 20 seconds for the username and password to transfer from browser to backend. Hackers can attack, right? Any hacker can attack this application traffic and see what transactions are happening, what data is flowing. If the developer of this application used text as the data transfer process, and the hacker is currently trying to sniff the login traffic, he will see all the usernames and passwords which are transferring over the air from their computers to the servers. And one of the hacker can clearly see that there is a user name called Kiran and there is a password called Kiran123 that is getting transferred. He can clearly see the username as it is. He can clearly see the password as it is. And let's say someone else is also trying at the same time, and let's say that person name is John and the password is, let's say, Kennedy. This username password also the hacker can see as it is, only because we are using plain text and clear text as a mode of communication. And the problem with plain text or clear text is it does not encrypt the data. Encrypt is a kind of masking your data to protect so that no second person can see what is the username and what is the password. So it does not encrypt the data during data transfer from front end to back end. Because of this drawback that plain text has, hackers are able to read your data. This happened in the year 2000, 2001. Now, when talking about the year 2000, 2001, the internet is not very built like the current internet what we see today. And if you compare that with the internet available in the year 2000, so 2000 year internet is more like a kindergarten internet, and today it is like a postgraduate internet. Because in 2000 you didn't had Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. You never had social media. You never had online banking. You never had online financial transactions. Everything is offline only. In the year 2000, people used internet as a digital newspaper. It's like you visit any website like bbcnews.com, if that existed in the year 2000, you just read the news, like what happened. You cannot log in, you cannot like, you cannot share, you cannot comment, you cannot transfer funds. It's just that you, instead of reading the physical paper newspaper, you are reading it on the computer browser. So industry thought that since people are not interacting much, people are not logging in, where is the security necessary? So they used the plain text as a mode of communication. But the biggest drawback they understood is it is not going to encrypt the data. So tomorrow when I implement login functionality, a hacker can come and start stealing the data, right? That's the reason I used that this technology is outdated. When I say outdated, it is not recommended to be used during API design and development. Okay, that's what I meant when I said plain text. So when the industry said, hey, let's not recommend plain text, let's have a better format, then HTML became a better alternative. HTML had its own disadvantages, but it was little better compared to plain text. Some reasons are there here, because of which the industry thought, hey, HTML is also not pretty much better. They wanted a successor. Then they went to XML, which offered a better security than HTML. Then after a few years, XML also had some problem in terms of security, etc. They wanted a better technology that can fix those problems. Then they went for JSON. And now they say that we are satisfied. Like today, they are satisfied with JSON. Tomorrow, when a problem comes, because hackers are also using technologies to hack our data, then when JSON also has reasons to become outdated, another technology will be revealed by the industry. Okay. So this is some explanation that I could give you guys for this data communication languages. So all in all, let me do a quick recap of what we discussed today. An API stands for Application Programming Interface. APIs enable data transfer or data communication between multiple modules in a given enterprise application where three actors are involved: consumer, producer, okay, and API is the third actor himself. Simply say, API acts like a messaging broker between any two modules in an enterprise application. Almost every product in the world today, they use APIs technologies. And those products which are not using APIs, maybe they are happy without APIs, or in the future, they might shift, they might migrate to an API-based microservices technology in the future. And the communication format that these APIs uses can be text or HTML or XML or JSON or YAML. Mostly people prefer JSON, but in some projects they use XML. In this course that I'm teaching you, I will cover both XML and JSON because both are being used in the market. Right? XML very less percentage, but still we will cover it because your projects might still use XML. Okay, so this is a quick recap of what we discussed today. Before we sign off from day one class, if you have any questions, now you can ask me, guys. We have one more minute before we sign off. Anyone have a question, please?
Yeah, Kiran, just you mentioned that before API we used to do functions call. So what were the disadvantages we faced because of it?
See, function calls are used within an enterprise application. APIs can be used outside enterprise application also. Meaning APIs can talk between modules within the same application. They can also talk to other modules which are outside your application. Like I took Book My Show application, right? Book My Show is interacting with a third party application like PVR database or any other Inox database. So multiple systems are involved here, right? So APIs are in a position to interact with multiple third party applications. Function calls cannot talk outside your project. They are applicable within your project. That's one of the biggest differences.
Okay. Yeah.
And the calls are getting recorded. You guys will get access to the recordings. I will also give you notes. I'll put everything on a Google Drive. I'll share the notes of day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. On a daily basis, you will get the notes. So forget about the notes concept. You don't have to write anything. I have whatever notes I'm writing, I have already prepared it. It will be made available on Google Drive. I have written it. It's not a copy and paste, so that you will definitely understand it. The only request is concentrate on this 1 hour training so that you can ask me as many questions as possible and get the real benefits.
Yeah. So, Kiran, just one query from my side.
Yes.
So the terms is consumer, producer, API, I understood that, but in general business scenarios in present day in my organization, there was a term called trigger. They're using it. So what is this exactly? Trigger means what?
Okay. Again, depending on the technology, the answer will change, but I'll try to correlate it with APIs only. So if you see login is, so which module is sending a request here? Login and logout. Logout is sending a request, right? Because he wanted to know whether Kiran is logged in or not. So logout is the consumer, right? Is the logout consumer here? Because
Okay.
he is going to consume the information that login is going to produce. So in this example, login is the producer, right? So since the request is fired from logout, because logout is initiating the request, I can say the request is triggered from here.
Okay.
Okay. If I talk from another way, the response is triggered from here again. So it depends on what concept you meant to trigger, but this could be the meaning. The request is triggered from consumer. The response is triggered from producer. That could be another way to think of.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions, guys, before we sign off?
So you talked about YAML. Is YAML popular today? Are we going to treat YAML as JSON?
Yes, YAML is, yes, it is definitely popular. But the usage of YAML in API testing is less as compared to JSON in API testing.
In case we come across that in any project, that is it. Are we going to treat it at least for some knowledge or some idea?
Yes, we are going to talk about YAML as well in our training program. We will cover XML, we will cover JSON, we will cover YAML.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, cool then. So I hope the session that we had today is little helpful to you guys. We're talking very slowly in the first few days because the basics have to be very clear before we switch to Postman 2. So our day 2 session continues tomorrow, same time. The timings will not change. It is going to be the same timings from tomorrow onwards. And I request you guys to get in touch with Isha Training Solutions for any queries or for your enrollments.
Yeah. Okay, Kiran. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay then.
Thanks.
Thank you everyone. You guys take care. Bye bye.